Hey SMC family, just wanted to have a talk with you and with someone who could be helpful. Most of you probably know Boomer Bauman. He is the guy who plays guitar often in our worship team, but Boomer is also a counselor at Springhaven, and so I just thought I would have a conversation with him in regards to stress and anxiety. Given the current situation that we're in, I'm encountering a lot of people who are experiencing stress and anxiety at a whole different level. So we're just going to sit down and have a little conversation and have you be in on it as I ask some questions to Boomer. So Boomer, we'll just get started. What are some signs that I might be experiencing an unhealthy amount of stress or anxiety in this time?
Yeah, well, there are a number of ways that we can pay attention to how high our anxiety level is and our stress level. And one of the main ways is just our body. That God designed our body in a way to send warning signs or red flags. Any little change in your body, it could be a tightness in your chest, it could be clenched fists, it could be just increased temperature that you're feeling, feeling kind of heated. And when we pay attention to those things, it can be kind of the first cue to help us know how to calm that down and cope. If you think of it kind of like a snowball, and as a snowball is picking up steam and collecting snow, it gets bigger and it gets more difficult to manage as it goes. And usually the signs that our body gives us is kind of in those early stages when it's still small, and those are the best times to deal with it.
Gotcha.
Some other ways to pay attention to that is your sleep. I've often talked with clients about if I were to write a therapy book, it would be called The Power of Sleep, because sleep seems to be tied to everything.
That's right.
Whether we are kind of laying awake at night and just running the day over in our minds, or obsessing over certain things that happened, even thinking about this virus and everything.
Checking to see how many cases there are now in Ohio.
Exactly, yeah. And unfortunately, a lot of the things that our mind can get tied to that can keep us awake at night are being right there in our face, in the media. And so it's okay to take a break from watching the news and things like that as well. So paying attention to how well you're sleeping. Another big one would be relationships. How you're relating to your spouse, to your kids, to coworkers, to friends. One thing to keep in mind is maybe, let's say a few months ago, something happens with your spouse, she says something or he says something, and you're able to just kind of let it roll off your shoulders, and it really just doesn't impact you all that much. And now, a month later, the exact same thing happens or something very similar, and you become really reactive to it. And it's almost like your emotions are controlling your behavior in that way. And so just noticing how you're relating to people can be a really important sign to keep track of.
Well, yeah, and with everybody being in close quarters now, with kids being home from school, and if we even have to run into even closer quarters where people can't go out to work, I can see where that would be a big deal.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, I mean, just to comment on what you just said there, that's really being tested right now with how people are being, maybe forced to spend more time with their families at home, which is a good thing, but it kind of puts that more under strain as to your patience level with your kids and things like that.
And it's definitely a good thing until it's not a good thing anymore.
Exactly. And just noticing that the way that you're feeling and reacting may not actually be about what's happening in that moment. It might be more tied to just how full your stress capacity is.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, let's hop into what are some coping tools that we can use to help relieve stress and anxiety? What are some practical things we can do?
Yeah, there are a number of different coping tools. There really are hundreds, and we're just going to kind of scratch the surface for this. I do want to stress that if you are feeling a lot of those warning signs that we just talked about in your body and in your sleep and in your relationships, and you're just feeling that your stress level or anxiety level is really high and you need some additional support and how to manage that, to not be ashamed to go get some professional help and to meet with a counselor. Because learning coping strategies, it helps to have that accountability and support as you're learning to practice them. Because it takes a while to really feel the benefits of that, and it can help to have someone kind of walking alongside you in that process. But one of the main coping skills that we have that's been around for a long time is just breathing.
It really has been around for a long time.
It has been, yeah. It's counselors for centuries have been trying to help clients just learn how to breathe properly. And it may seem like a simple one, but when we pay attention to our breath and we're able to just kind of slow down and take it in through our nose and maybe hold it for a second and push it out through our mouth, it slows our brain down, it slows our whole body down, and it can be kind of a good anchor point for us. When you notice that your mind is drifting to anxious thoughts or stressful thoughts, to not try and fight that, which can make it worse, but to just kind of notice that your mind has drifted away, and then very gently try and bring your focus back to the breath going in and the breath going out. There's a technique that you can use to focus on your breathing, and it's called the Foursquare Breath. And what it is you breathe in for the count of 4, you hold it at the top for the count of 4, you breathe out for the count of 4, and then you pause for the count of 4. And what you can do is kind of envision in your mind that you're drawing a square, and each side of the square represents one part of the breathing technique. And so it would just look like breathing in, holding it, breathing out, and then pausing, and just in your mind, just really trying to give a visualization to the breath as an anchor point. Another main one would just be doing things that are life-giving to you and recharging. Activities, hobbies, art, music, exercise, all of those things that we know can help us de-stress and deal with that. One of the common things that comes up for people is they say, when they are feeling stressed or anxious, is I don't have the motivation to use my coping tools.
Stress drains that.
It's one of the first things that high stress or anxiety or even depression attacks is our motivation. And we have the idea that we want to wait to get our motivation back before we do those things, and unfortunately the opposite is true. Sometimes we need to kind of push ourselves to get out and go for a walk or a bike ride or play some music or do some art, or those kinds of things, and the motivation usually comes secondary to that. It's kind of like a perpetual motion machine. Once it gets started, it kind of picks up steam, and the motivation builds as you're doing things through action in that way.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of stress, especially for parents right now, but I guess the question I have is, how can parents help their kids during this time manage stress that they have? Because a lot of times the stress comes from the kids, and maybe if we can help our kids manage their stress, we'll be able to manage ours better too. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's a good point, that a lot of parents are feeling that pressure right now as their kids are home from school, and there's just a lot more people to keep track of in the home and to keep busy, and lack of structure and schedule that they might be getting otherwise has been taken away in this process. And parents have to work too, so they're trying to manage their schedule and keep track of the kids as well. But one of the main things parents can do is try and replicate some kind of schedule or routine for their kids.
Structure.
Yeah, having some more structure. Kids really crave that. You know, sometimes as parents we think they don't because they rebel against it, and it seems as though they don't want that. But ultimately, at their core, they need that. They need that sense of, I don't have to figure this out on my own. Mom and dad have it, and I can feel a sense of security and stability and just kind of following some kind of plan that's been laid out for me. It can actually help relieve their anxiety and stress if they have that. So coming up with some kind of schedule for your kids when they're at home, putting in breaks and downtime and time to get them outside if the weather is cooperating. And even if it's rainy for multiple days, give them an umbrella and still send them out just to get some fresh air.
Then go outside and breathe.
Exactly, yeah.
That's good.
But then also just leaving time to talk about how they're feeling. Normalizing that. Sometimes a kid might feel like they're the only ones having that anxiety. And if you as mom and dad are trying to hold it together and act as though you're not bothered by this, they might be more reluctant to share that they are bothered by it. So if you can normalize it's okay to have a little bit of anxiety and a little bit of stress with this, it kind of opens up the conversation to get them talking more about it. That's a good thing.
Very good. Okay, and then I guess the last question I would ask is just how can we as a church be helpful? What are ways that you see the church being able to minister to people through this, especially in regards to stress and anxiety?
Yeah, a lot of people are asking that question of, what can the church's response be, especially when we're not meeting on Sundays anymore, which is a real challenge because that's our opportunity to come together.
Right.
But in 2020, we have other ways to come together and recognizing, can we connect via email or even, letter mail, sending a letter, if you're most comfortable with that, that's okay. But finding ways to stay connected is a really crucial way to help when people are isolating and being encouraged to quarantine and social distance and all of those terms that are being thrown around right now. And so just paying attention, noticing who did you typically talk to on a Sunday morning, and just because we're not coming together, can you give that person a call? Or send them a text, or just let them know that you haven't forgotten about them during this time. Often we take those things for granted, or we don't think that they hold as much power as they do to do that, but that can make a world of difference for some people. Just to get a call to say, we haven't talked in a few Sundays, how are you doing? Kind of thing.
Now, I might just pop in for a shameless plug. On my blog, you'll see a ministry that we just launched called Talk and Pray. And we're going to attempt to set up a network of people who are willing to just listen if people want to call. If that's you, if you're willing to listen to people, we really want to know that you're out there. Like I said, go to my blog. You can read the article and then get in touch with the church office. By the same token, if you want somebody to talk to, please let us know that as well. And we'll connect you with one of the pastors or one of the folks who have said, have somebody call me. So that's one of the things that we're trying to do just to keep people connected. I love the way you said, those conversations that you'd have every Sunday. Well, who are you missing? Can you reach out to them? And we want to facilitate that as much as possible.
Yeah.
Well, Boomer, anything else kind of cut you off there? Were there any other thoughts just in regards to how the church can help?
I think just kind of noticing ways that people are feeling disconnected, or even kind of paying attention to your own feeling of being disconnected from the congregation, and recognizing that you're not alone in that feeling, that a lot of other members of the congregation might be feeling that too, and it's it could be very helpful to just reach out to them.
Yeah.
Stay connected.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're gonna wrap up now. We're gonna put some resources that Boomer recommends on this description for this video. I would invite you to go to those, check them out. There's some helpful stuff there. And also, if you want to leave comments or questions that you might have, we'll be watching these videos, and I'll make sure that we get those questions answered, either publicly or privately. If you want to leave them on the YouTube comment section, of course, those will be public. You can always reach out to me, and I'll make sure the questions get to Boomer. Hey, thanks for watching the video, and hopefully we'll talk again soon. Amen.